Hey everyone, it's Leia and I am back with a tarot review video. This one is on the Ludy Lescot Tarot by Los Scarabeo. I am super excited to do this review because I like this deck a lot. For one, I'll tell you right off the bat, it's got nudity, which I love, so now's a good time to save this video to your list to watch later in case you're at work or somewhere else you have to be mindful of what pops up on your screen. Let's begin with a bit of a background on the deck. The creator, Ludy Lescot, is shrouded in mystery. You'll see if you read the little white book that comes with the cards, there isn't much in there that reveals her identity. And I won't talk here about the brief history she gives in the booklet in case you want to explore that tiny bit of info for yourself. I will say though that the artwork is by Patrizio Evangelisti and it's comparable to what can be found in graphic novels. I personally really like it. It speaks to me, as do these cards just generally speaking. Which brings me to another thing I enjoy about this deck. So these cards are on the darker side, making them perfect for shadow work, which I enjoy doing. Those of you out there who are new to the term, the shadow is that part of us we don't want to look at or acknowledge. What happens then is, it pops up at the most inappropriate moments, so we end up self-sabotaging. Paying attention to our shadow aspects, taking care of them, and sending them love is what keeps the sabotage from happening. If you find that interesting, take a look at the work that Carl Jung and the magnificent Debbie Ford have done on the shadow. So yeah, this deck, having a darker theme, I find makes it great for discovering those parts of yourself that you may not be so aware of or are choosing to not be so aware of. And I've seen, when doing readings with it, that it has genuinely helpful messages in that regard. I say this because some dark gothy decks, in my experience, are only that way on the surface, but they don't go deep. The darkness is more like a theme, but there isn't much substance there. I'd also like to say that even though there is darkness here, for example, there are vampires and what appears to be despair and desolation in many of the images, I don't get messages with a heavy vibe when I read with these cards. In fact, I feel that a lot of transmutation from dark to light happens during my readings with them. So, the results are very positive and uplifting despite the darker artwork. If there is any gripe at all that I have with these, it would be with the box. I'm not even really complaining, but this is what the box looks like. So it's on the thinner side, the flimsier side, and I have taken really good care of this, but it arrived here already falling apart. If it really came down to it, I am going to put my cards in a pouch. You know, the kind of pouch especially made for tarot or oracle cards. So that's not the biggest deal, but I do like storing my decks in their original boxes or having the original boxes as long as I can, like until I have to move again or something along those lines. The little white book that it comes with is typical of the regular Los Scarabeo decks, the ones that don't come in kits, that have thicker books with them. You don't actually get as much info as the pages that you see. In fact, the English section for this deck only goes until page 14. All of the cards, both major and minor arcana, only have like about a sentence or two devoted to their interpretation. But that's why I would encourage you with cards like these to explore what they're telling you instead of relying on the little white book meaning. So there are 4 other languages in the little white book. And as for the descriptions again of each card, they're on the cryptic side. For this reason, you can use them as inspiration as you get familiar with the cards, but like I said, find your own meanings in them. Which is fine anyway with a deck like this because it deviates in part from the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And you'll see what I mean in a moment when we take a look at the cards. And this is what the back of the cards looks like. I adore that kind of artwork and that vibe, that feel. I guess you could say it's the kind of darkness that you can find beauty in. I like a lot of goth stuff. The card stock is typical of a lot of Lo Scarabeo decks. It's thinner, but it feels flexible. And as for the texture, it's on the matte side, so it's not shiny and glossy. So just really quickly, let me show you what a card from another Lo Scarabeo deck looks like. This is the Lovers from the Royo Dark Tarot, which I'll be showing you in a different video. And you'll notice that there are several languages on the card. And the reason why I bring that up is because in the Ludy Lescot deck, you don't get any words at all on either the major or minor arcana. And I think that that might be the company's way of being a little bit more universal. Or they could also be doing it so that the words don't get in the way of the story that the card is telling you as the reader. And so, how you know which card is which is the major arcana, they have Roman numerals on them. For instance, you see the 0 for the Fool, the 1 both top and bottom for the Magician, the 2 for the High Priestess, and so on and so forth. But again, I'm going to mention that I don't think that you really have to memorize so much of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meanings, because these cards will speak to you. Of course, having some familiarity with the traditional system helps, but I wouldn't really get too stuck on it with cards like these. And then the minor arcana, how you know which card is which, is there's a symbol at the very top of the card. So cups have that symbol, wands, swords, and pentacles. And these cards that you've just seen are the aces of the minor arcana. They all have a woman in front instead of just the symbol of each suit, which would look like this in a traditional Rider-Waite card. There's a hand holding the item that symbolizes each suit. So something else that I want to mention about how you can tell which card is which pertains to the court cards this time. I'm going to use the suit of wands as an example. That right there is the symbol for the knave or the page. That one is for the knight. That's the queen. And that's the king. And I'm just showing you this to give you an idea, but you don't have to worry about memorizing that because you'll see it in the little booklet that comes with the cards. Now, what I meant earlier about nudity is it's female nudity. There isn't really any male nudity here unless you count guys without shirts on as nudity. And you don't really see them naked from the waist down. It's mostly boobs. There is a lot of cleavage overflow here, and not just that, but you actually see some nipples peeking out of their corsets. So I'll give you an example. This is the 2 of cups, and you can see right there, there's a peak of nipple coming out of her corset. Here too, you can see both breasts are actually visible even though she's dressed. And that's just something that I wanted to mention in case you are very particular about the decks that you purchase because you want to be careful which ones you use when you read for other people. Now, I did mention that there is quite a bit of deviation here from the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith cards, but I want to point out that there are at least a couple of cards that pay homage to some Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. So I'm going to show you a card from the Radiant Rider deck. And then I'm going to show you the corresponding Ludy Lescot card. Here is the 7 of Swords. Take a look at this card from the Ludy Lescot deck. If you'll notice, there is the traditional Seven of Swords in the back, in the form of a stained glass window. And then here is the Three of Pentacles. Which in the Ludy Lescot deck, you can see being painted as a scene. And I think that that's really awesome that they did that. And to give an example of a deviation, take a look at the traditional Justice card. So Justice stands for all that is fair, everything being in its rightful place and all that. The Ludy Lescot deck, you see that Justice is in a state of despair. Is anything just anymore? Is anything ever really fair anymore? The description in the little white book for Justice says, "The world is unjust. Do you know how to be just? Then the rest of the world can even be mud." So that's what I meant. It's on the cryptic side. And now I could show you some more cards just to give you a better idea of what you're getting in case you're debating at this point whether you want to work with this deck or not. I have some cards from the Suit of Cups right here. And that's what I meant by cleavage overflow. And this is such a cool image, how the mirror shows her to be a skeleton. And now here are some major Arcana cards. This is the Lovers, and that's what I meant by there are vampires here. Not too many of them though. Also, while we're on this image of the wheel, you can see that her eye makeup's running. There's a lot of that in this deck as well. See, the runny eye makeup is in this card too. So, that's it for this review. Thank you very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure for me to be able to share my points of view with you on the Ludy Lescot Tarot. I'll be uploading more videos and I won't be stopping with just reviews. I'll be doing mini lessons too on developing your intuition, speaking about stuff that quite possibly can inspire you, things along those lines. So, if that sounds good to you, I'll see you again really soon. In the meantime, bye for now.